And we are live. Welcome back to us, Dr. Vincent, After Hours edition. And I know we are a day late, but better late than never. How are you today, Christian?
I'm very well, and I have to apologize. It's my fault for being a day late.
That's why he's talking so softly. Can you speak up, please?
Oh, sorry about that. I've been a little bit under the weather, but I'm feeling a lot better now.
Have you been taking your activated phenolics every day?
Well, in fact, what I do is I do take it every day. I take the powder, and when I feel I'm getting a bit sick or when I'm actually got symptoms of illness, then I double the dose. So I think it does help. Look, you can never say for sure. You know the science better than I do, but I feel for me, it kind of does help with the recovery.
Well, scientifically, it does help not only preparing your body against illnesses or getting sick, but what it does, it also helps your immune response when it comes to your inflammatory response. And not only that, it actually does shorten the amount of days or time that you are actually sick. You know, one of the most frequently asked questions when it comes to our activated phenolics powder, you probably can guess this, Christian, is that whether or not they can put it in cold water as well as warm and hot water without it impacting the benefits or the power, the potency of the antioxidants. And it actually is really mind-boggling that people are still asking that because we have said that so many times that it is engineered to withstand high temperature processing, even up to 141 degree. But I guess the reason why people kept asking is because there are products out there that can't even withstand 40, 50, or 60 degrees Celsius.
Well, I think I'm a bit of an outlier because I actually just take it straight from the tub in a powdered form on a spoon. That's how I do it. Probably about a tablespoon of it. You do have to have a certain
My dad,
tolerance.
my dad does it too.
Well, you have to have a certain tolerance for having a fine powder kind of in your mouth, which I don't mind, and it's got a nice flavour, so I don't have any problem. But there's probably lots of people who maybe don't want to put a tablespoon of powder in their mouth. I know my dad, who uses it religiously every morning, has it on his breakfast. He puts it on his breakfast.
And my grandma takes it in the form of tea. So she would put 2 teaspoons in like hot water as if she was making like a herbal tea and then just sip it in the morning.
I think I just can't be bothered going to the effort, so I just take it. I just take it as
Well,
it is. As it is. Anyway.
each to their own. But today I thought that it's very topical and thematic that we are talking about our bodies and illnesses or getting sick because I think everybody think that they know what happens when we get sick, how we get sick in terms of contracting common flu, influenza, or developing some kind of like disorder due to inflammation or the scary stuff, right? But you asked me this morning, and I thought that it would be a good topic for our podcast today about illnesses. So hit me out with your questions.
Okay, so uh, I guess the real, the first one is that is it true that sort of vitamin C, for example, keeps away the common cold and is kind of uh, the best thing to prevent illnesses?
It is true. It is true scientifically that vitamin C helps our body to recuperate. It helps our body to repair itself. And what it is that it is an essential nutrients that our body cannot make on its own, that our body requires to repair the tissues and the cells in our body. I don't know if you know the story how vitamin C came into medical or scientific knowledge. That was because the British Navy, all these sailors suddenly get
Scurvy.
scurvy, and getting sick without being able to recuperate or recover while they're out in the sea. And the reason is because they lack the fresh fruit and vegetables. And at that time, the remedy was that to give them slices of lemons. So they suck on lemons, and suddenly all of these illnesses that at the time was like mysterious were alleviated. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because when we look into the amount of vitamin C naturally found in a lemon wedge, for example, it is so much less compared to a tablet of vitamin C that you get now from the bottles. However, the difference is that the vitamin C for the majority of vitamin C supplements that you get from the supermarket, health food stores, or even so-called practitioner brand, they are actually synthetically made in the lab. They're ascorbic acid or
Yeah,
variant
so
of the ascorbic acid.
so vitamin C actually has this other really, really cool name. The actual proper name for vitamin C is
Ascorbic acid.
ascorbic acid. I just think that sounds like the coolest thing ever.
Except that is artificially made in the lab when it comes in the tablet form. The difference between vitamin C that you get from fruits and vegetables, like lemon, oranges, kakadu, for example, or apples, is that the vitamin C conformation is a lot more stable coming from the whole food.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, you are saying that the vitamin C tablets that you would buy in a shop or whatever comes from
Compounds made from the lab. They are synthetically made. They are chemicals.
chemicals. So the combination of chemicals that produces ascorbic acid powder, I'm assuming.
Yes,
And what's the color of ascorbic acid powder?
white.
It's white.
So it is so crazy
But
that
all the vitamin C tablets are orange.
there's this thing called coloring, Christian.
But why would they put that?
I am not saying
Why would they put that in
that's
vitamin
because
C
people
tablets?
associate vitamin C with oranges, with lemons, with citrus, and the crazy thing is that there is not an ounce of any of that thing that they're trying to sell you that is actually in the product.
There's no oranges, there's no lemons, there's no
For the vast majority of it, no. And
but it still I mean it still works for people. I mean we're saying yes, it's a synthetic compound.
let me give you an example. Let me give you not an example, an analogy, a better way to understand the reason why I have a lot of reservation when it comes to vitamin C that comes in the form of tablet chewables or things like that is because when you take vitamin C tablets, the next time you go to the toilet, it changes the color of your urine. It becomes really yellow, bright yellow, or neon yellow sometimes. That is a sign that your body is rejecting all of this synthetic vitamin C that your body cannot absorb, cannot metabolize, and therefore cannot utilize. All of the excess things that your body cannot absorb will put a extra workload and burden on your liver and in your kidney, because both of these organs need to work really hard to get rid of them, to flush them out from the body. Otherwise, they become toxic compounds. Hang on a second. This phenomenon is not actually observed or seen when you eat oranges or lemons or drink margarita, for example. It doesn't matter when you eat like 5 or 6 mandarins, it doesn't turn your urine yellow. And that's because your body recognizes the conformation of this vitamin C in the whole food form, that it can be used, it can be absorbable, it can be utilized by your body. And that, I would argue, scientifically, is a better source of your vitamin C.
So in a naturally occurring lemon or whatever, is it still ascorbic acid? Is it still that? It's just naturally occurring ascorbic acid instead of synthetic ascorbic acid?
When it comes to the chemical conformation and structure, yes. Strictly speaking, yes. And that's the reason why food manufacturers, food brand or supplement brand can get away by saying that their vitamin C's are natural, because they're actually not natural. There's a classification under the law that they can be classified under, which is natural identical, which means that when you break it down, when you take apart everything, the chemical structures are the same. However, the way that your body recognizes that is not necessarily the same. The same way that if you clone me, you get something that is biologically me,
Heaven
but
forbid.
it's not me. The world needs more Dr. Vincent.
It is true. The world does definitely need more Dr. Vincent, and we have been sidetracked by vitamin C because it's been so interesting. I didn't intend for us to go off on this tangent.
Well, but it's part of recovery.
No, but I want to, but I want to ask, just very quickly, because people will be wondering this. Okay, so you're taking the vitamin C tablets. How many milligrams of vitamin C should you take a day? How much do you actually need?
I really do believe that anywhere between, depending on your diet, but anywhere between 50 to 100 milligram of vitamin C.
Gee, most of the tablets are like 1,000.
1,000. And when you go to megadose, it can go to like 5,000.
That is nuts, isn't it?
That is nuts, and people are wondering why.
Is it dangerous? Is
It
that
is
dangerous?
dangerous. It is dangerous. I was about to say that people are wondering why some research and study shows that over time, the population who take or who had been taking a lot of vitamin C supplement are higher in their risk of developing some sort of kidney issues. And that's because you're putting your kidney on over time.
Wow, I had no idea. Look, I don't take I don't take other supplements since I occasionally take vitamin D, but I don't take other supplements since obviously I was introduced to the one you invented. But I'm really surprised to hear
I
that.
actually did not invent the supplement. I invented the technology, and Christian has always been underselling himself. You helped me commercialize this technology
Yeah,
because
yeah, okay.
when we first started, I'm not underselling myself either. But when I first started, I could comfortably make a grand total amount of 2 kilograms of this activated phenolics in the lab. And Christian's background is engineering, and I remember this because on one hand, having a patented technology makes you feel that you're on top of the world for like 5 seconds, because after the 5 second lapse, you then realize that you had to build the machinery to produce this extraction process, because the fact that you had the patent, you have the patent, means that no one has ever done that before. So there you go.
And naturally extracted.
Naturally extracted
Using only
using nothing
nothing but water.
else but only water.
So nothing synthetic about it. The powder is entirely natural.
It is entirely natural. It is the only antioxidant supplement in Australia, and I would say, to the best of my knowledge, in the world, that people who are um, very, very young, so children, elderly, women who are pregnant and breastfeeding, can safely take, because antioxidants usually are made either synthetically in the lab or extracted using chemical solvent from natural sources, but the process is chemically heavy and chemically involved. So those extracts are not suitable for people who are after who want their body to absorb the antioxidants, but more so for people who are sensitive, or at the sensitive stage of their life. Say people who are pregnant, breastfeeding, elderly, young kids. Those are the people who are a lot more vulnerable towards this antiquated technology that involves a lot of chemical solvent.
Okay, so just to bring this all back on track, because we were originally going to talk about illness in the body, we've got sidetracked.
That is the reason.
Now
That is
on
the reason why you should
two
have
different
script.
things.
And today we have no script. And I mean, I said to Christian, I said that we have to do an episode today, because we're not only we're late for one day. It was supposed to be published yesterday. If we don't do it today, you won't hear from us until next week. And I value the time that you invest in waiting for our episode, because for me it's like a weekly appointment with you.
Okay. So the takeaways though are those synthetically sort of developed things like those ascorbic acid, vitamin C tablets. Your body is pretty smart, and it's going to recognize to some extent that they are synthetic, and it's going to move the you know the
excess out.
the excess out. It's going to use some of it, but it's going to move
Yes.
the excess out. Okay, no worries. So getting back to illness in the body, the first question is, what makes us sick?
So there's this term in our body that I remember you also told me that it was quite cool. The term is homeostasis. So homeostasis means that your body is in perfect balance. It performs its duty well, performs its functions well. It shields itself from excessive inflammation. It shields itself from infection. It helps every part of the organ and tissue and system organ oxygenate it really well, delivers nutrients, convert excess nutrients into storage, and at the same time, utilizing that storage to produce heat and energy. That is our body in perfect biological balance. However, when we get sick, it really does affect the way that our body responds to stuff. Say, for example, when we are being bombarded by an invasion of bacteria or viruses, then your body has to deploy all of our immune system, has to declare war on that foreign material and send the inflammation rate to go spike up. And that is fine because that is how our body respond to this threat by foreign objects or foreign organisms. The problem is that when you are not generally healthy, for your body to pare back, to pull back from a status of war, going back into the homeostatic condition, sometimes your body fails to do that. And that's when you have chronic inflammation. The other aspect of our illness is the cause of our illness is obviously genetic. So some of us are more prone towards developing certain type of diseases, especially when it comes to degenerative diseases. I'm talking about the propensity of our genetic to, say, have cardiovascular diseases, to have higher cholesterol than other people. And whilst there is a nature aspect to this kind of diseases or disorders or illnesses, the nurture aspect also come into play because, for example, the twin experiment or the siblings experiment, just because they have the same gene of, say, for example, um, at the higher risk of developing diabetes, for example, doesn't mean that all four out of the siblings in this family will all develop a diabetic condition. Maybe the two siblings who are more active, who watch what they eat, who are being a little bit more smarter when it comes to their lifestyle choices, may not actually have this genetic predisposition being expressed in their health. But when when someone has this genetic predisposition to develop certain type of diseases and not taking steps in reducing the risk factor, that's when this genetic predisposition can manifest itself.
So, in simple terms, we get sick, we get ill when our body isn't prepared to deal with something like a virus or a bacteria or a fungus, because I think funguses cause illness as well. Who would have thought there are all these tiny little mushrooms floating throughout the air
So
that cause problems for
for
people?
those who don't understand the reference, that is the Last of Us reference.
Well, it's not that bad yet, but
Well, look at us. This is the reason why you have to keep watching and listening to our podcast, because I just recently updated my Instagram bio. I updated it to Doc of all trades because we do talk about lifestyle, we do talk about pop culture, health and wellness, and everything in between.
okay, well, let's bring it back. So the body's not ready to deal with these virus, bacteria, fungus. I'm guessing also, sort of free radicals caused by the environment. So very quickly, everyone knows what a virus, bacteria, or fungus is. But what is a free radical? Just very
So
quickly.
free radical. Let me start this again. Free radicals are basically a group of compounds that are constantly on the lookout to steal electrons from your body. They're literally toxic for our cells because they lack an electron to stabilize themselves. How do they get stabilized? They take and steal electron from our cells and therefore causing our cells to be unstable. And that can cause a lot of issues because an unstable cell basically will then cause the surrounding cells becoming unstable as well. And this domino chain of effect will put a lot of pressure onto our cellular system. And eventually, if this is being left unchecked, it can cause cellular mutation. And in some cases, the mutated cells can be cancerous.
Okay, so in terms of bacteria, viruses, and fungus, the way that the body can prepare for those things, am I right to say, is that's what immunization is about?
That is correct.
That's how they get the body to prepare
Yes.
for those things, so you don't get sick.
When you're
or as
talking
sick.
when you're talking about preparation, it literally is a preparation or a training ground. So the same way that you practice before the test, the same way that you do a rehearsal dinner before the actual wedding dinner, the same way that you practice your speech before an important presentation, your body needs that too when it comes to fighting off diseases that are caused by infection, things like bacteria, virus, and fungus. they need to be able to learn the moves of this enemy, the strategy of this enemy, because especially when it comes to viruses infect our body by a very smart mechanism. It basically comes and hijack our own cellular system and uses our own system to then replicate themselves in the body. So the body immune response need to be able to recognize certain moves or certain strategies by these foreign objects or foreign entities to be able to counterattack, to be able to protect ourselves from this invasion. And that's what vaccination and immunizations do. They help our body by giving our body a weakened version of these diseases, so bacteria or virus, so that our body will win in this sort of kind of rehearsal fight. And by doing that, the next time your body immune response is being faced off with the real threat in the real world, it has been prepared. It knows all the moves. It can deploy counterattack. And the same way that um, mRNA technology, for example, for vaccination, whilst it doesn't contain the weakened virus to train our immune response, it has that mRNA is basically a genetic coding that is being deployed to train our immune system to know how to better deploy our counterattack to make sure that we don't get terribly sick.
Okay, so this might be a really unfair question, and I didn't give you a completely no warning of it. So there are obviously things that you can get immunized against, but there's some very common bacteria that you can't immunize against, and if you have it in the body, you get sick. Am I right? By saying things like E. coli and Salmonella, like the really common bacteria, if you get that into your body, how you can't be immunized against that? Or are you slightly immunized against it, but it just overwhelms you? How does all that work?
So when it comes to E. coli or Salmonella or say Helicobacter pylori, those are the types of bacteria that cause issues in the body by not only causing a systemic infection, it also does a localized infection. So E. coli, for example, majority of the cause of this infection would be like dirty water or unhygienic food practices. And salmonella is from things like raw chicken or raw egg with the chicken that is unvaccinated or unclean in terms of the practices. So the reason why we are not vaccinated against that is due to the way that our body is responding to that. Sometimes you can't really train our immune system to fight off certain types of disease or certain type of bacteria the same way with fungus, for example, because it is just depending on how your body ability to fight off that disease right there, right then. It doesn't create an imprint memory on your immune response. The other thing that I also should mention is that in terms of our body system immune response memory, say for example whooping cough, you need to get vaccinated every 10 years, and ideally your body will be able to remember that, but you need a booster to remind your body how to fight off this disease. So your body is just like us in terms of our brain. When you are being given a mathematical test and you've been practicing for that, but the test never comes. 10 years in the future, you probably forget how to solve
How to do quadratic equations.
There you
I
go.
was very good at quadratic equations in high school, but if you put one in front of me now, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
And the other aspect of this is that sometimes you are just being faced with mathematical question that you simply do not know how to fix it. But if you have a solid foundation in mathematical skills, you can at least try to fix it, or you can fix partially half of the problem. The same way that running a small business, you cannot be prepared for every situation. But if you have a solid team, solid foundation, it may take you a little while to solve a unique problem, but having those foundational skills takes you 50% there. That's the same thing with salmonella, for example.
Okay. So we've talked about, sort of bacteria, viruses, and fungus and the sort of response to that and immunization. And then obviously there's the treatment options and antibiotics and things like that. Just going back to free radicals, what is the preparation response to free radicals?
The preparation response is to make sure that your body's indigenous antioxidant system is working really, really well. Our body is really good at fighting a free radical attack. However, we live in a world where the amount of the free radicals being dispersed out around us is a lot higher in proportion to our own body's ability to neutralize free radicals. That's why we need antioxidants, and antioxidants can come from fruit, vegetables, activated phenolics, minerals, vitamins. However, you need to make sure that your body is able to utilize these antioxidants because unfortunately, some antioxidant supplements can actually override our own body's indigenous antioxidant response. And number one, it makes our body become dependent to this external intake or input of antioxidant. Number two, it can actually cause chaotic scenario in our body because if our body is confused, our body is a lot more vulnerable to the attack.
And this is all happening at a cellular level.
At
I
the
mean,
cellular level.
this is really like getting to the brass tacks. This is
Yes,
cellular
and
stuff.
every day, your body literally is being faced with oxidation with every breath that you take because oxidation is caused by a chain of reaction that involves oxygen. As you know, human, our body requires oxygen as we respire, as we breathe, and oxygen is really, really important for our cellular mitochondrial activities to produce energy. That's the reason why we age because our body has to go through this process of being broken down and repair itself every day. There's one thing in our genetic makeup that is called the telomere in our DNA. The telomere is basically the part of our DNA and in the cellular system that keeps on replacing and renewing itself. You can measure the length of the telomere. The shorter it is, it means that the closer that particular cell is to death. The longer it is, it means that the ability of this cell to renew and regenerate itself is still quite high. The problem with some of the technology or supplements that propose that they can elongate the length of the telomere is that they seem to forget cancer cells telomeres are actually really long. That's the reason why cancer cells are so resilient and so resistant towards being killed. So I think that you need to strike a balance because you don't want to be sending the code to elongate the cells telomere. They are unhealthy because you don't want it to keep on mutating and persisting in your body.
Pretty hard challenge that people are putting lots and lots of money into, a pill to make you kind of live forever, but you know,
well,
there's a lot of like complications with doing that.
I really do think that sure, people want to live forever, right? But at least for now, with the technology that we have, it is a lot more wise to aim to live healthier and happier. And hopefully you can live healthily and happily for long term. The reason why I say this is because when people are healthy people want a lot of things. They want to be beautiful, they want to be full of energy, they want to achieve their dreams, they want to do a lot with their lives. They have a lot of things that they want. In comparison, sick people only want one thing. They only want to be healthy. So I think sometimes taking a silver bullet pill or taking an injection or doing this fancy exercise are much more appealing to these people when it comes to making themselves healthy or having longevity. However, a lot of these meaningful changes are actually rooted in little things that you do every day. Because if you don't want to invest in your health while you're healthy, life will force you to pay attention to your health because when you get sick, you will do anything to get better.
So, in fact, what you're better to do is prepare your body for the challenges that I guess it faces just walking around and breathing and the rest of it. And in terms of free radicals, it's a really, good quality, synergistic,
Broad spectrum.
broad spectrum absorbable antioxidant.
I agree, and I always say this, right? Like, I am a man of science. I believe in scientific breakthrough. I believe in medical technology. I believe in cutting edge treatments when it comes to diseases. However, in my opinion, the best form of treatment is prevention.
Okay, so we've talked about preventing getting sick from those various things. What actually happens to your body when you're ill? Is it kind of a universal thing that happens regardless of what the illness is, or what happens?
When it comes to fever, yes. When it comes to so fever is not a disease. Fever is a symptom when your body immune response is activated. So one of the way to tell whether or not your sickness is a type of infection is whether or not you have a fever. Not in all cases, but this is a general rule of thumb. So when your body is under attack, usually the immune response has been deployed. It elevates your temperature, giving you a fever temperature, elevate your body temperature, and it is considered, you know, depending on the degree, fever, high fever, uh, or mild fever, and then your body then get inflamed. In the short term, that's good because an acute inflammation is a way for our body to kill off diseases, to kill off viruses and bacteria. That's basically our body firing off all of this fire. What we don't want is that post war, our body's immune response still thinking that they are under attack. That then turn into chronic inflammation. The difference between this is what we call recovery. The difference between healthy people getting sick and sick people getting sicker is this recovery process. For healthy body, biologically, broadly speaking, this immune response can be switched on and switched off quite easily. But when people are already unhealthy and they get sick, the body is already overwhelmed and thinking that this is another thing that I have to deal with. And it is basically saying to itself that, okay, I'll just be at war at all time.
So what's the deal with, like, sometimes, and it always happens on a Friday, you end up, getting sick, you end up spending,
It
all
really is
day.
after hour. I think we're running out of battery
We
for
run out of
lighting, but
batteries for our light. Uh, you end up, being in bed all of Saturday, and then lo and behold, Sunday about 4 o'clock, you feel completely fine again for work the next day, sort of thing. Why are some illnesses like that, like, really quick, and then other illnesses, like, you might end up having a cough for like 2 months or 3 months that no one can explain?
it is just the nature of different types of infection. Sometimes the incubation period is also very important in terms of the length of disease. Sometimes it's how your body. There you go.
There you go. There's a cough.
Sometimes it's just how your body is responding to it and how it recuperates and recover post disease, and things like, say for example, after a flu attack or a common cold attack, there's this thing called post-nasal drip. It is not necessarily a part of the infection, but it happens when infection happens. When people can recover really quickly, this post-nasal drip stops almost immediately after the infection has been resolved. And that doesn't then cause prolonged cough or inflammatory reaction in your throat and nasal airway system. But for people who are not recovering as quickly, this post-nasal drip can linger for, I don't know, up to 6 weeks, even in some cases. And that causes like your throat to be inflamed, and then you are confusing, which is confusing because sometimes people still associate that it's still infection, but be just well, it could well just be inflammation. And the other thing also is that depending on how the viruses or the bacteria are attacking your body, obviously, if your body is less prepared to fight this infection off, it means that the damage caused by this invasion would be a lot more severe compared to when your body is prepared. And that determines the amount of time that your body needs to recover. So just say that if your body is like a town, right? Like in a superhero movie, the more damage that it's being done to the buildings and everything, the longer it takes for you to rebuild it. And that's your recovery period. That's the reason why when healthy people get sick, in a lot of cases, the recovery period is shorter because there are less things
Was
to fix.
their body more prepared to deal with the bacteria, whatever it was, than other people who maybe aren't as healthy?
Yes, and when I say about healthy people and unhealthy people, broadly speaking, 80% of it is about inflammation. If your body is already inflamed and it then get infected, your body is already not ready to fight off diseases and let alone having to repair itself. That's the reason why healthy people can deal with illnesses a lot better compared to people who lead an unhealthy lifestyle. In most cases, healthy people will have their inflammation rate managed well. Unhealthy people or people who lead an unhealthy lifestyle, when they eat a lot of ultra processed food, when they don't drink enough water, when they don't move, they don't have a good circulatory system, their body is already undergoing inflammation. And it's a lot easier for a virus or bacteria invasion to take your body off balance when it's already inflamed.
Okay, so I'm having a salad tonight for dinner.
I have a really good salad recipe, by the way.
Okay, we'll put that up on the website or Instagram. So, obviously, when you are ill, like in the middle of the illness and the rest of it, you go to the doctor, you get the pharmaceutical treatment that you need, and that's very important. But maybe what are the tips for dealing with recovery, and when do you start? Like, when do you start trying to deal with sort of recovery? Is it as soon as you can kind of pick yourself up out of bed and that sort of stuff? I mean, yeah.
Aside from taking antibiotics or obviously a specialized treatment, if your doctor prescribed them, three things: you rest, meaning that you sleep, you drink plenty of water, and you eat. Things like, say, for example, a common cold or virus infection, that really puts your body in a lot of strain in the way that you need to eat a simple carbohydrate, for example, or sugary stuff.
But you
We can
don't feel
name
like it
because
sometimes. Like, you don't wanna eat sometimes when you sort of.
that is very true. However, when you can eat and when you want to eat, please do, because your body needs energy to fight off this infection. And things like coughing, for example, or sneezing, the amount of energy that your rib cage and your intra intra rib muscular system that has to work to perform coughing, for example, that takes a lot of toll and energy. So when you can eat, please do eat. Um, that's the reason why people say that, I'll make you soup because it's easily digestible. It is usually packed with broth, bone broth or chicken broth. It is packed with minerals from salt and herbs and everything. It has good protein like chicken, and it also is hydrating because it is in the form of soup. So all of these things that we learn from the past is not just old wives' tale. There's some science rooted in it. And while we're on the virus infection and stuff like that, just to answer your question in full circle, one other example of things that we can't seem to just have a vaccination that lasts long is flu vaccine, for example, flu viruses. And the reason is because influenza or flu viruses mutate every season. And while you might be prepared or you might be trained for certain type of strains, the next strain may knock you off because you've never faced it before. And the same way that when people move countries, so say for example from Australia to United States or vice versa, or to London, they may not be, even though they're vaccinated here, they may not be able.
So your body's not prepared for
Yeah,
for that
for that
environment,
type
bacteria and
of strains.
viruses,
Yes,
and that what we were talking about before in terms of like preparation. So maybe what the message is there, before you go on holidays, especially if you're going overseas, make sure you're eating healthy before you go.
yes, and
So you're preparing yourself.
talk to your GP, because a lot of times, say if you go to some places that require certain types of vaccination, uh, please do get it, because whilst those diseases are not an issue here in Australia, because we have collective immunity, because probably a majority of the population have been vaccinated against that kind of disease, that type of disease, maybe the place that you are going to not have that kind of a collective immunity.
Okay. So, I just want to stick with recovery because you get if you've done preparation, you give yourself the lowest chance, obviously, of getting sick. But you do get sick, so it happens. I don't know, once a year to me or something like that. Sometimes I'll go a couple of years without getting too ill or whatever. But I guess I'm pretty fortunate, but maybe typical. Um, in recovery, what are the foods and, beverages to avoid?
Alcohol,
So no alcohol in recovery.
yes, and something that is too diuretic. So things like soda, coffee, tea. I know that I know that in some cases it actually helps you to feel good, especially if you have like sore throat. It helps to soothe your throat. But make sure that you drink water as well, because water is the
A
best
lot of
source.
people drink tea while they're ill and getting recovery and into recovery. Like tea's like a thing that your
Because it's
grandma
warm,
would
it's
say,
soothing.
okay, but what you'd be better to actually just be having warm water
Warm
or
water
something.
works.
Okay.
Uh, and if you do want to drink tea, maybe herbal tea with honey rather than your English breakfast tea. Um, Fruit and vegetables is very, very important. Have good healthy fat, so avocado.
You should eat avocados in your recovery stage.
Um, Not necessarily have to be avocado, but you need to supply your body with good fat.
So what does good fats come from?
So nuts, seeds, avocado, they're one of the eggs. Those are the examples of food items that supply you with good amount of fat, but not necessarily saturated fat.
How about like chocolate? Because everyone wants to know that.
If it makes you feel good, maybe in moderation. It's
But
not
it doesn't
something.
help with your recovery.
It's not something that necessarily helps you physically. It does help you mentally, because when you get sick, you obviously have to look after your physical health, but at the same time, you also have to look after your spirit, because people who have good spirit, it doesn't matter what kind of illness is that that person is experiencing or suffering from. Maintaining a good spirit is always really, really good, because by maintaining a good spirit, you are reducing the amount of stress hormone and adrenaline that your body is flooding itself with. And because remember, the body is physically is in the fight and flight mode. Anything that you can do to reduce that additional stress level is very important.
And I'm guessing also you might want to avoid what things that could potentially introduce additional stress on the body. Would you avoid something like a salad or something? Would you want to just be eating cooked food or
That
what's your
that is correct. Like things like uncooked food, sashimi. If you do know that your immune system is not on the top of its game, if you know that your digestion is not 100%, don't be fancy and complicated while you're like fighting off these diseases.
Well, I remember as a child, if you were ever sick or in recovery or whatever, you'd get Sayos and Vegemite. You probably don't even know what a Sayo is.
No.
It's like this water cracker type thing. It's got absolutely no taste or flavor, but you know, it's what you ate when you were sick. I don't know if that happens anymore. I don't
Well, if you
Sayos
know what
personally.
Sayo is, please do send me a picture of it. I guess I can Google it, but it's always good to have you be interactive and engaging with our content. But it has been a really good conversation. I do think that we need to stop now, because we don't even have lights. But I didn't want to stop you mid question, because it is called Ask Dr. Vincent anyway. Um, but It's really good to say hello to you. Have a great weekend, and I will see you hopefully next week. Bye bye.